if you've never seen a middle ground show from the channel Jubilee, it's an interesting one. So they take opposite sides of a debate, opposing viewpoints, or even opposite lifestyles sometimes, and what they do is they ask questions, and if you agree with that question, that statement even, you step forward, and if you don't agree, or what have you, you'd stay back and then join the conversation when you kind of feel like it or when you're asked to. And it just allows, middle ground allows people to sort of come together and share ideas. It's a nice little concept. I'm doing this one on abortion because abortion has become very relevant over this last year because America seems adamant that it wants to drag itself further into the dark ages. And in this case, people on the left, they are pro-abortion. People on the right, they are anti-abortion, or anti the right to abortion and pro the right to abortion, I should say. If you like to label yourself pro-life, if you're against abortion, you're a fucking liar, because you're not pro-life. You're against body autonomy, you are against rights, you are against feminism as well. You are, the only thing you're really pro is the over-encroachment of religion on people's lives and laws. I will never respect someone who claims to be pro-life. I'll never respect someone who is actually in favour of banning abortion. But yeah, in any case, let's just get started. We've got a first question coming up.
Nobody likes abortions.
Well, straight away, it's a weird statement. Nobody likes abortions. Nobody likes the act of abortion. Yeah, I would agree. No one likes. No one's like, oh, I fucking can't wait to have an abortion. Like when I'm older. Obviously, that's an obvious answer. But the thing is, would you say if you want there to be the right to abortion, you like abortions? I feel like that's how some people might manipulate it. But anyway.
I don't think anyone likes it. I think they use it, and they might use it incorrectly from my perspective, but I don't think anyone likes an abortion. Like, they're not like jumping for joy for it.
I think it is a very physically taxing process to go through, and I don't think anyone would want to intentionally have an abortion. I think those who get an abortion, most of the time, it's because they need to.
Can the disagreeer step forward?
So they're going to come forward and say why they disagree now,
I think if you asked me this question maybe several years ago, I would have said nobody likes abortion. But I think in today's climate, it is much more celebrated. As a pro-life person, I've had people tell me that they will dedicate their next abortion to me. Instead of helping women, they will have an abortion.
Yeah, so she's been ignorant as fuck here on purpose. People who say that to her are trying to troll her, essentially. They are trying to trigger her because they know she's personally offended by body autonomy, basically. She's personally offended by people being able to have the right to an abortion. So they are saying to her, not only do I have the right still, and I'm rubbing your face in that, I'm going to make you feel even worse by dedicating it to you. That it's a purpose troll, and it's a good troll as well, because it is in response to bigotry. So it's fine. I've never claimed to be anti-bullying, right? You shouldn't bully vulnerable people. You shouldn't bully people who can't defend themselves. You shouldn't bully people who are already victims or already oppressed. You absolutely should bully the people who deserve it. The absolute idiots, the arseholes, the dickheads who are bullying other people. You can purposely target them, and I'm fine with that. This is what the entire channel's about, to be honest. Bullying conservatives. Being idiots.
I've heard very similar responses to you. Things like, I'll donate to Planned Parenthood in your name. And there's other pages like Shout Your Abortion that openly celebrates abortion rates.
Yeah, I celebrate
Yeah, so that's trying to lower the stigma of it.
Abortion, and I think that campaigns like Shout Your Abortion aren't about like getting in your face, but women who choose to have abortions suffer a lot of stigma and trauma from people who stand outside clinics and have grotesque images and literally, damning your soul. Abortion as a medical procedure and resource is something that I do celebrate. It's a human right, and I love abortion.
My name's Abby. I'm from Orlando, Florida, and I'm an abolitionist of human abortion. We have to ask the question of what makes humans valuable. So because my worldview as a Christian gives me a foundation for human worth, and because I believe scientifically fetuses are human beings from the moment of conception, I am against abortion.
So, usual thing with the abortion debate, religious people always get the 2 cents in there. There is absolutely no reason to say human life starts at conception when the sperm meets the unfertilized egg that you can't also apply to the sperm and unfertilized egg separately. So if you're saying a fertilized egg is a human at that point, then why couldn't the sperm be considered a human? It's still a potential life, isn't it? It just needs an egg. The eggs, unfertilized, is a potential life. It just needs sperm to fertilize it. It's literally one step removed from the fertilized egg. So why have you arbitrarily put the line there? That's stupid. Literally one step away. It's several thousand steps away from an actual human, the the unfertilized egg, but it's one step away from the fertilized egg. So, like, what's the difference? Once again, it's just an arbitrary definition that Christians put in there, and their reason for believing so is because my religion, even though nothing like this is mentioned in the Bible anywhere, nothing says that when the sperm fertilizes the egg, it's now a human. Weird that, isn't it? It's almost like Christians back then had no idea how the fucking human body worked or something like that.
Biological fathers should have an equal say in abortions.
He's having a think. No, it's good that he's having a think.
Well, I think so. I mean, it's consistency. Like, if we're defining that as a life, if it is a life, to put a kid up for adoption, both parents have to agree.
I agree. I have talked to lots of women who've had abortions, and I've talked to lots of men who are hurting. They're completely heartbroken. They would have raised the baby. They wanted to raise the baby. They begged for the life of the baby, and they obviously created the baby together, but only one of them gets to decide if their child gets to.
Yeah, so the fetus is not sucking the life force of the father at the end of the day. The fetus is a parasite, by the very definition of a parasite, and only the mother's affected by that. Now, not saying there can't be an emotional attachment to the father, but would a father be okay if there was a way to have the woman pass the pregnancy on to the father? That would be an interesting thing. Would you, as a man, take that pregnancy on if the mother doesn't want it, but you want to keep the child? We'd have a very different conversation then, wouldn't we? And I know most people who are anti-abortion, if they're guys, probably would just do a performative, oh yes, I would, but I doubt your sincerity there, to be honest.
To live or die.
I would like to say, from more of an honestly feminist perspective, men have responsibility as the other parent of that child. Ironically enough, a lot of the times when pro-choice people put the focus completely on the woman, they strip the man of all his parental rights and responsibilities. And I think that's why actually a lot of men who are pro-choice because they don't want to have those fatherly responsibilities that they will have once the child is born.
That's fucking stupid. And you just mentioned it anyway. Parental rights starts when the kid is born. So, of course, you can't then say, well, fathers don't want parental rights once the fetus is born and becomes a baby. But also, men should have a choice in whether the baby's aborted because of parental rights. Pick one. Pick one. You can't have both.
You left us, man. I want to know why.
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
I'm predicting he's going to have the most intelligent answer so far for this question.
I'm conflicted about this because I strongly feel like a man should not have control over what a woman does with her body.
Well
I
done.
also have an issue with when a man doesn't actually want that baby. She wants it and then expects this man to like be the ultimate provider and child care and all this extra stuff, right? But in the case of if the man wanted it, the baby, and the woman didn't want it, he has no say so. I think that's a f***ed up dynamic. So that's why I was going back and forth.
Well, you should have stayed then. It sounds like you're for men having more rights.
I just can't force a woman to be like, no, you have to do this, because I think it's f***ed up. It's her body.
But it's also a child's life in there. It's not just her body.
No, it's not. It's not a child. There's a reason. Scientifically, it has a different name. It's not a child at that point. Fucking hell. I can't believe there's still people who push this shite.
So your son or daughter.
I think truly, in my eyes, it's like it's my body. I get to do what I want with it, and I don't think anyone, including the other person who's involved, should have a say whether I want to keep it or whether I want to get an abortion.
My name is Asher, currently reside in Las Vegas, and I'm for pro-abortion. I used to be against abortion until an unwanted pregnancy happened to me. If you know for a fact that you're not even gonna be the best parent for that child, or you can't provide for that child, or maybe you're just fearful and don't want to pop a child out of you, or just whatever reason that you have, I feel like you shouldn't have to go through with that. You still have that choice over your life, your body.
That's the thing. So when an unwanted baby is brought into the world, that baby's going to have a fucking terrible life because it's not going to have the love it could have had. For example, if it's for economic reasons why the abortion was going to be considered and they weren't allowed to get the abortion, for example, that baby's is being born to a family or potentially just a single mother in a lot of cases who cannot afford to raise it properly. That kid is destined for a life of poverty, and we know where poverty leaves. I've covered it in a previous video. It leads to higher likelihood of crime, lower education outcomes, lower job prospect outcomes as well. Obviously not in all cases, naturally, we're talking generally here. But that's a shit life. And the worst thing about this debate is people who claim to be pro-life, as soon as that kid is born, they no longer give a fuck about that kid. That kid may as well fucking die a few minutes after it's born. The same conservative Christians who claim to be pro-life wouldn't give a fuck. They'd honestly switch straight away to, well, it was a choice to be in poverty. No, it wasn't a choice to be in poverty. It didn't have a choice. It was brought into the world unwanted. The parents didn't even have a choice because you took the right away from them. That's the world you want. And, you know, on certain aspects, several of these conservative Christians want there to be continuous suffering and poverty for the people below them because that means they stay below them. That's the reality of it.
I have had an abortion.
A few months ago, I found out that I was pregnant. When I imagined myself finding out I was pregnant for the first time, I wanted it to be celebrated. And in that moment, I felt such severe anxiety. And having that, I felt like the entire time I was just in a lot of emotional pain, grieving. I was debating about myself, about how I would be looked at or how I would view myself after getting the procedure done.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm nervous. So I'm gonna be real careful with my words. Clearly, as a man, I can't have an abortion. But my girlfriend, we've had 2 abortions. She didn't really want to have a baby. I didn't really want to have a baby. And I know for me, I don't want to be seen as that deadbeat father person, but I knew I wasn't really trying to sacrifice my own dreams or what I was trying to accomplish to be a dad at that point.
I think that's definitely like one of the biggest things to consider because I wasn't in any kind of position to be a mother, you know? So it's like, I want to get my shit together before I can have a baby and give it a life that it deserves.
So those 2 people we can call very mature, responsible people. Because they didn't just say, let's spit out a baby just because society expects that of us. Can we actually provide that baby with the life we feel that baby deserves? If no, then we will not bring that life into the world. That's called responsibility. Anti-abortion people, that'll be lost on them, entirely lost on them.
Can they disagree a step forward?
Your story is absolutely powerful, and your story as well. I think something we probably all can agree on is abortion usually is a symptom of a bigger problem, whether it's finances, whether it's stability of housing, whether it's relationship issues. My perspective is that we address those issues instead of ending the life of a child.
Interesting that she didn't mention one of the biggest issues, which is lack of sex education, because conservative Christians have really fucking find sex icky, at least pretend to in public. The fact that conservative Christians, especially in America, will still say abstinence only. And it's not just Christians, it's certain other religions as well, of course. But conservative Christians dominates American conversation, that's why I'm talking about it. But they'll actually preach abstinence only, a philosophy that has only led to increased unwanted pregnancies. and increased teenage pregnancy. You guys just need to get over it. You need to grow the fuck up, right? Teens are going to have urges. They're going to experiment. It's going to happen regardless of what you say or do. Are you going to make the environment more toxic and dangerous for them so that when they do experiment, the absolute worst things possible can happen to them? Or are you going to allow contraceptives? Are you going to educate them on the dangers of it? Are you going to educate them on how it works? So that if they are going to experiment, they can avoid unwanted pregnancy, as well as sexually transmitted diseases. And just the stigma and the anxiety and all that comes with it as well, on top of all those issues. But once again, conservative Christians will not talk about that.
I disagree. I don't think that abortion is a symptom. People should be able to access abortion when, how, wherever they want or need. I don't think that it's a problem to be fixed. I think that is still stigmatizing.
But I think the biggest thing is that there are birth control methods out there, and abortion should not be a birth control method. I think that's very critical. And
no one says it is. No, it's fucking dumb. No one ever has claimed that abortion's a birth control method.
And to hear that,
abortion's needed because you thick fucks can't fix contraceptives.
Oh, you weren't celebrated. I think life should be celebrated with everybody.
Well, I think it gets down to the heart of the issue here. What is the unborn? Which scientifically the embryo is from conception.
No, you've made that up. You're talking out your ass. There's no scientific consensus on when life begins. Once again, it is 100% not when the conception happens. It's not when the sperm meets the unfertilized egg, because there's literally no reason why that would be it, but the unfertilized egg and the sperm wouldn't be. Once again, if anyone gives me a good reason why the unfertilized egg is not alive but the fertilized egg is alive, then you go ahead and tell me, because they both have the exact same properties. They both perform in the same way. They're both potential lives. Once again, the unfertilized egg just needs a sperm, and then it's where the fertilized egg is. It's one step away. Why is there an arbitrary line there? Whereas the fertilized egg has to go through a fucking miracle transformation. Let's be honest. That takes 9 months. So, what's the difference? Why is something 9 months before it's born still alive, but something a literal second, half second before that, suddenly not alive? It's fucking stupid. I can't believe people still push this shite.
Living whole organism with distinct DNA. As a Christian, I come from a worldview that says that every human being has dignity and worth.
Not to disrespect any religion in general, but in my eyes, that's just pushing a belief onto someone rather than actually stating a real concrete fact. So
Scientifically, I'm pro-life because of science, not because of religion.
No, you're not, you fucking asshole.
But scientifically, I believe that life does start at conception. I don't think it makes
Why? I dare you to explain why.
To put life in any other place during pregnancy. Doing so usually ends up saying that an already born person isn't alive.
No, because an already born person has an immune system, has a nervous system, has a functioning brain, can breathe on their own, can digest on their own. What the fuck? If there's any person in the world that's being born and they have the functions of a fetus, yeah, I would say they're not alive either, because they would literally be dead. I like how the conservative Christians have gone now, oh no, because of science. What science, you ask? Oh, well, I'm not going to tell you that. That's a secret.
Such as consciousness, heartbeat, etc. There are many pro-life people here from the science perspective who are not led by religious motives at all or partially.
I disagree. I bet that's
I am
inevitably
Ayala. I'm 18
false.
years old. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I am anti-abortion. One misconception that I deal with pretty frequently is that we're all Christian, white, old men, and as a Jewish woman, younger, I really want more voices like.
Oh, one of the common misconceptions is people always assume I'm Christian. Well, I'm not. I'm Jewish, which is an Abrahamic religion earlier than Christianity that worships the same God and has most of the same beliefs. Yeah, you've got me there. You've absolutely got me there. Cheers.
like mine to be seen in the anti-abortion movement because I think we have new perspectives that would help kind of bridge the gap and have us find a little bit of middle ground between our two opposing sides.
So conservatives like to do this. They like to always say when they're losing a debate, well, you need to compromise with us. No, we absolutely don't. We'll compromise if there is a compromise. But if I'm saying women should have the right to body autonomy and you want a compromise where they should lose some rights to body autonomy, I'm going to go, no, because that's what you want. That's not what I want. That's not a compromise. That's you getting your own way. So, no, go fuck yourself. The compromise between pro and anti-abortion is you're allowed an abortion, but there's things in place to make an abortion very unlikely to be needed because there's contraceptives in place, there's lots of education in place, and so on, so that abortion rates go down, but it's still available for those in desperate situations that still need them. That's the compromise. Weird conservatives are not in favour of that, though, because it actually involves making the world a better place.
Abortion is murder.
People like to say this, abortion's murder. Name one person who's been killed by abortion. I'll wait. Name one of them.
I think it is
I'm obviously
murder,
trolling,
I think,
by the way.
For the abortionist more so than the woman. I think a lot of women don't necessarily know exactly how an abortion procedure is formed. I've had a girl even tell me that at 20 weeks a baby is just a clump of cells, and that's just not true.
I do believe
No one's ever said that. You're a liar.
now there might be cases where some women might be unaware of what's going on in an abortion. But by and large, I think, especially with the advent of the internet and so much education out there, many of them do know that that there's a life inside of them and they want to end that life, whether they call it murder or not.
Hard disagree. Absolutely disagree.
Okay.
I've definitely met a lot of teenage girls who grew up in our generation who believe that abortion is normal, a fetus is a clump of cells, and there is no human life in the womb.
A fetus is a clump of cells. It literally just is. It obviously depends on what stage, but if you're saying a fetus at the beginning of conception, the moment the sperm fertilized the egg, if you're saying that's the exact same level of life as a fetus at, say, 8 months, let's just say, we'll say very late, if you're saying those are exactly the same, then you're a fucking idiot, because one is definitely literally just 2 cells together. Literally just 2 cells, the sperm cell and the egg cell. This one is millions of cells. Like, you can't say, oh, a fetus is more than a clump of cells, when no, there is definitely a stage where it is literally just a clump of cells. If your definition is life at this point, you cannot deny that it's a clump of cells at that point. If your excuse for being anti-abortion is it's more than a clump of cells, then you wouldn't believe the bit about the fertilized egg being a fetus. You would say a fetus is actually at 4 or 5 months, maybe. But no, once again, conservative Christians and conservative Jews as well, and conservative Muslims and all those other religions that preach this archaic shit, that thankfully most of those same religious people do not agree with anymore. I'm thankful for that. None of your views are consistent because it's entirely based on one goal, which is repression and control over people's lives.
They don't tell you when you go in for an abortion consultation, this is a child and this is a human life, and that's what's going to be happening.
Well, no, they're not going to tell you that because that's not true. That's your hang-up. That's your thing you need to work out there. That's your misconception. So yeah, when I go to the doctor for the COVID vaccine, guess what? They never sat there going, you realise this is the mind control chip, right?
I have a hard time believing that if most women knew they were killing a child, they would do that. I don't think women in America are that malevolent. I think it's very irresponsible and very hurtful to say, oh, this woman's a murderer because she had an abortion.
It's just the constant pushing and the failing to face reality of, oh, you're killing a child. No, it's not. Like, give me any example, any bit of evidence that proves aborting a fetus is killing a child. Find me any equivalency there.
At least in my personal experience, the people who worked there were very understanding. They let me know there is a child that could come out of you in 9 months. Are you sure you want to do this?
A child that could come out of you at 9 months. Wording's very, very clear there.
I knew there was a child in my body. I knew I could have a child in 9 months, and I knew that that child can grow old and be their own person. But I made that choice because I'm allowed to have that choice.
Oh, she can't handle this. Look at her.
And especially you. You are a white man, and you are not allowed to say what I can do with my body, nor any of these other women who are able to carry a child.
I think that's so dangerous. I think that's so dangerous to say that you can't say because of your sexuality, who you are as a male or female, or how you believe as a religion, you can't define what's right and wrong. I think that's misguided,
you can
and we shouldn't take that into policy.
I think what she's saying is that whatever your morality is, I think that folks are entitled, that we have freedom of religion, we have freedom from religion. Whatever your moral value is, the issue is trying to turn that into legislation and putting it on someone else.
We legislate what's right and wrong all the time.
Thinking.
No, you don't. That's a lie. Not everything that's wrong is illegal. Not everything that's illegal is wrong. That's just a clear fact. That's a child's understanding of the law.
Even medically, like for Indigenous women, they're 2 times as likely to die from pregnancy-related complications. Who's responsible for that murder if she's forced to carry that baby?
Well, I would be all for working on legislation altogether where, if the woman's been taken advantage of, or if they've incest situations, or if her life's at risk, we can keep those options on the table.
So all of a sudden, because she could potentially die, we'll make legislation where she can't abort that baby, and all of a sudden you're pro-abortion?
No, I'm not pro-abortion. I personally would not like her to choose that option. I think science has come.
prefer that she die,
No.
right?
I think science has come a long way where that's vastly not the case anymore within our medical community, and we need to continue.
This guy's so naive.
To increase funding for those mechanisms to provide more research on how to keep the woman alive in those situations.
What is the...
I want more research on how to keep the woman alive. He's so naive. Like, he's the worst person that's popped up so far, that guy.
Is the end goal here that abortion be illegal and it be criminalized and removed as a resource forever from this country? Is that the...
Illegal and unthinkable.
Illegal and unthinkable. So it is culturally...
Culturally for women. We want women to have resources, first of all, where they don't need an abortion. And then abortion for the abortionist is criminalized. So an abortionist could go to jail for performing it. Women should not be criminalized.
What the fuck's an abortionist? Is this the conservative way of dehumanising fucking trained medical professionals doing their job? I think it is. It's like when they say teachers are communists and stuff.
Because at the end of the day, women are victims of abortion as well.
Abortion should be accessible to rape and incest survivors.
Weird. White guy just said it should be in the previous question. Now he's staying back. Once again, it's almost like they don't have any consistent thoughts. And they don't mind lying either.
If you're pregnant from your brother or your cousin or your father, especially if it wasn't consensual, or even if it was, you should still have that option to abort the baby. And especially if you've been raped, there are some people who have that thought like, oh my God, like what if when I look at my child, I relive that trauma?
That's a reminder.
And not saying that's how all rape victims view it, but it's just like some women have that fear.
Okay, so I was raped for 4 years of my life, violently, more times than I can count. And I did get pregnant when I was 15. My rapist threatened me with abortion multiple times. He used that as a tool to keep me in his power. If he had the power to terminate evidence, he had power against me. I did end up losing her, but I wanted her very badly. I named her Rahel, which is Rachel in English. And I think it's very important to humanize people who are conceived in rape because they're walking around right now.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, and I think it's very insulting to place that on a human being. I think that humans, no matter how they are conceived, are human beings, and they deserve to be respected, and their lives deserve to be respected.
And I agree because that's me. I agree 100%. And my mom has always told me she doesn't view me as even on my birth certificate, he's not my father. So
Also, I want to tap on what.
So it's difficult. So she's an actual victim of rape, and he is a product of rape as well. It's very selfish and irresponsible of them both to now say, my way is the only way. So because I was born as an unwanted pregnancy and I'm fine, I don't even know if he's fine, then you all have to be fine as well. And I'm going to make sure you don't have any other option but to follow through with this. And if they're not fine, it's your fault as a parent. No, because once again, that's putting responsibility on people who never wanted to be pregnant in the first place. And her as a rape victim as well, even if she wanted that baby, it's really unfair for her to then say everyone who's raped should also want that baby. It's despite being victims, it's really horrible for them to do that, and it's really irresponsible too. That's the unfortunate fact about it.
What you said though, because you said you really wanted to keep your daughter, and although you don't, see it as the rape baby and stuff, other people who also go through that traumatic experience may actually see it like that, right? You wanted that, but there's other people that had their a choice taken away from them. They shouldn't be shamed at going through this, and even having to live through that experience of the rape baby.
Here's the thing: when you get an abortion as a reaction to rape, you are continuing the cycle of violence.
But abortions aren't violent. That's an easy one. Abortions aren't violent. What's more violent, a medically safe abortion or a back alley abortion with a coat hanger? What's more violent? What's more likely to result in the harm of the woman? Food for thought.
So you were raped. That was.
And if you respond with, "But there's a baby being killed," no, well, we've already established this. No, there isn't. And I'm begging you to please argue why it's a life. Go ahead.
A violent experience happened to you that wasn't your fault. You're hurt. You've been victimized. Why is it fair to further victimize someone else because you are hurt?
But no one's been victimized. Easy? Like this is so fucking low ball and easy. Like it's you continue the cycle of violence? No, I'm not. There's no violence. Well, what? It's not fair for you to put that on someone else. There's no one else involved. Just me getting the abortion.
But you're seeing it as a someone, though, man. I'm putting myself in a woman's shoes or a human being's shoes, right? You take my choice away. You rape me. And for all you know, I might be a struggling human being, right? Making $8 an hour or something like that. Crazy bills. I might be living in my car. I might be sleeping under the dumpster behind McDonald's. But now, because of your opinion, right, and my traumatic experience, I get shamed because I don't want to bring this life into the world, bro. Oh, but you should give birth and then put in foster care if you don't want it, bro.
I want to touch on that too, just for a second.
I'm really grateful he's here. It's very insightful from a lot of these women, especially the one with the pink boots. I know she's introduced herself. She's had a name. I can't remember it. Sorry, I can't remember any of their names. But she's really good here. But I'm really grateful for his inclusion because he is someone who's clearly been through this with his partner and has really thought about it and has changed his mind, and that's really important. It's uplifting for me that I can see that he's changed his mind.
Trauma, I think absolutely what I am passionate about is giving people the choice, and for you thought a lot about your choice and you wanted that pregnancy, and I'm really sorry that you lost that child. And I also thought a lot about, for myself, when I went through that experience, what choice would be best for me, and for me that was not carrying the child. And I think trauma is such an interesting thing. For me, not having control over a child growing inside of me and changing my fate of my life, that would be more traumatic than the initial experience. We don't know how people are going to react, but I do fight and would want them to have the choice to do what's best for them.
Here.
I think a strange misconception that people have about people who are pro-abortion is that we don't
She's called Little Dove. I'll remember that one.
Have respect for life, or we don't care about children. That's absolutely not true. I respect life very much. Unfortunately, I've also seen a lot of negative aspects of our systems in the US, like the foster care system. It's out of that respect that I believe people should have the right to choose an abortion.
America offers resources to help you raise a child.
Of course. Of course.
I think there was also,
the
latest round of COVID money, there was funding for women who've had children.
Yeah.
That solved the whole issue then, mate. Yeah.
And so many different organizations that want to help women, and the resources are there.
Also, government resources. There are government resources to help you take care of children.
Yeah.
Are there enough? That is a different question.
It's doing brilliantly, mate. Yeah.
Section 8, food stamps, free healthcare, school programs, and whatnot. Like, there are resources. Are there enough?
That's how my mom survived when she had me, because of government assistance. So that's the only way she.
The ignorance from those four is, it's just indescribable. It's amazing.
Because of that.
There's that thing. Oh, there is resources. Is there enough? That's a different question. No, it's the exact same fucking question. If there isn't enough, there may as well be none. If I get to draw a lottery of one rape survivor who's become pregnant, and that person gets their medical needs paid for and their life sorted, that's a resource available to survivors of rape for their unwanted pregnancies, but it's not really something that's helping everyone out. It's helping 1 out of thousands. So is that a viable resource? Can we say that's a good resource? No, we can't, can we? That's fucking stupid. Wow. just the absolute ignorance. And I'm going to say ignorance, maybe a level of naivety as well, but it's diabolical, to be honest. Wow.
I have been a pregnant teenager, and I've also been a teenage mother on welfare and unemployed. The number of resources that are available state to state is something that is atrocious. But what it comes down to is a lot of time and energy. The choice between, do I go to work and get the money to pay rent, or do I go and I sit in the office, or do I go to this nonprofit who's requiring me to fill out this application and come to a meeting in the daytime when I'm supposed to be working?
So you see it kind of like a job, like you're clocking in to fill in paperwork and you're receiving your check.
It is. Low resources and creating these sort of impossible hurdles and more barriers for people who are already experienced them to overcome to get the help is not a help at all.
Yeah, but you know, the Jewish girl next to you, she says it's fine, so you should have been okay there. And the white guy next to you as well, he says he was fine and his mum was fine, so you have to be okay as well, and it must be your fault otherwise. Fucking hell, this panel. It's the fact that they can look someone in the face who's had this experience and still, like, disagree with them. It's mental.
Well, I just want to say one thing because I think it's important. So I might not look it, but I'm Native American, I have my Cherokee card and everything. We have universal health care in the Indian community. And when she went to...
Oh, that would be a good thing that the whole country could have done with, really. I bet he's not in favour of universal health care across the board. I'm going to guess. He might...
Me, as a child, they told her in that universal health care system that she's not allowed to have pain medicine because that's a luxury. So she got it through government assistance. So that's a big deal that the United States... more for than the Native American community.
That is
I'm glad we're
such a low
discussing.
bar.
No, I'm not saying that's acceptable. I'm not saying...
I'm glad they laughed at him. He deserves to be laughed at because it is such a fucking low bar. The fact that they can turn around and say, oh, well, that's good enough. Or even not even say that's good enough, like, oh, that counts as a resource. It just fucking doesn't, does it?
That's acceptable, but I'm saying, like...
It exists.
It exists. That story exists.
But
That's enough. Or food stamps exist. Or there's some level of healthcare we pay for. There's some kind of housing assistance we'll pay for. There's some money you get for unemployment. You live an absolute fucking miserable life and there's no way out of that poverty. And we'll fucking take it away at a drop of a hat if we need to. But it exists, so you have to be happy with it. No, fuck off. It's not enough.
Literal reservations out there that do not have water, do not have electricity, do not have internet. That is in 2021. Are those not resources to raise a child?
So let's address that instead of killing the baby.
No babies died! Fucking hell! Idiot!
The question is, does the government provide resources? No. Does America provide resources? No. That's unacceptable.
Abortions will continue to happen regardless of the law.
Yeah, it absolutely will. Everyone should step forward here. Yeah, well done.
All right, well.
That ain't never gonna change.
I think, of course, it'll continue to happen. A law doesn't mean that something is not.
Right, if you admit that's going to continue to happen, now this is how law should work. If something's going to happen, how are you going to legislate to minimise the impact of that thing if it's a bad thing? So if abortion's going to happen regardless if abortion's legal or illegal, then you're just going to have to accept that. There's no point criminalising it for a start. What are you going to do about lessening the impact? And the answer, as far as abortion goes, is increase sex education, increase the availability of contraceptives, and make it easier as well to raise a child. So you are taking away that anxiety as well of, I don't know if I can bring the child in the world yet. Do all that. Do all that. Have abortion there. As an option for those that still want it and still need it. Do all those other things. It's pointless criminalising the abortion because what does that solve? What that does is send people to back alleys, doing abortions with coat hangers. They're going to hurt themselves and might even fail and worsen their situation. It's going to put people in prison where very few people bounce back from that kind of prison sentence as well. You look at the criminality in America, the free strikes laws, all this shit. It's very hard to get out of poverty after you've been through all that. So why would you sentence someone to that kind of life when you knew that situation was unavoidable and that they were going to get an abortion regardless? Which brings me back to my original point, which is people who claim to be pro-life are not fucking pro-life. They're very much anti-life. They're pro-misery. That's what they're pro.
not going to happen at all anymore, just like rape, just like murder, just like anything else we've outlawed. Just because they're still going to happen doesn't make it right.
But if you criminalize doctors and abortion providers, right, that means we know.
I'm not going to let that slide. I was going to let her talk, but I can't let it slide that you're comparing abortion to rape and murder. As far as murder goes, maybe you can argue that crimes of passion will always happen because there'll always be anger and stuff, but the whole idea of murder anyway is you're breaking social contract. So if you are murdering someone else, you are now not to be trusted in this society that we have built because no one wants to be killed. So we can no longer trust you in this society. We're going to remove you for it temporarily, at least until you're rehabilitated, and you're very unlikely to do it again, or we'll keep you separated from society in general. Abortion doesn't have that same thing because there's no social contract there. No one's affected by abortion other than the person getting the abortion. So it's their choice. If it doesn't affect anyone else, no one else gets to have a say in it. That's the be all and end all, really. And it should be as simple as that.
No longer have providers. That means abortion is no longer an option, and that by default, the way that this country, and especially my state, legislates will mean, and it has happened, we have precedent, a woman who tries to self-induce or who tries other non-medical methods to have an abortion can and has been criminalized. What is the policy that doesn't just absolutely take away the right that people have to access an abortion, regardless of what their beliefs are?
If that child is a human being deserving of the right to life, then yes, it should be criminalized.
No, it's not though. Another easy one. Well, if that fetus is a human life with its own rights, then all right, I'll stop you there. It doesn't. That was easy. End of debate. It's not.
Just like murder of 2-year-olds and 5-year-olds, and adults is criminalized, right?
But that's so different, though. You got people that you have.
It's even by conservative standards, even in parts of the world where abortion is illegal, the sentence for someone who does an abortion is not the same as someone who murders. So right there's your proof that legally, even conservative Christians don't consider it the same thing.
People that's 2 years old, already out the womb. They've been here for years, right? And then you got these cells.
Can I ask you something?
Go ahead.
When does it stop being a clump of cells?
Personally, I'm not worried.
Oh, easy. So it stops being a clump of cells when it's a functioning thing that has its own body autonomy. That's once again, easy questions. Easy questions. Now, the question is, when does it start becoming alive? That's harder, and scientists haven't decided that. But when does it stop becoming a clump of cells? When those clump of cells form something that is tangible and functional. Easy. Like, really fucking easy question. I don't know why anyone struggles with it. And on the flip side of that, you could argue that I'm a clump of cells. Every single part of my body is made of cells. This finger here, that's a clump of cells, essentially. But those cells have combined to make a thing, and there's a bone, and it does this, and I can move it myself. If I eat something, I can digest it myself. I can actually chew it and swallow it myself. I have my own blood flow. My heart pumps my own blood. My brain works independently from everything else outside of me. So I'm a functioning human. I am independent. A fetus is not. A fetus is a parasite. It is being built and maintained by the body it's attached to. It's a part of that body. The argument for that fetus being its own life could be used to say that my liver has its own life, and my kidney has its own life, and my stomach has its own life.
Worried about the clump of cells.
Decades of medical research has
understand
not been
why
able
we're
to
ignoring
land
the question.
on that
And
answer.
I'm trying to answer your question. As far as
Do
the
you
cells,
believe that abortion should be allowed all 9 months of pregnancy?
I do feel that's a bit more extreme. So I will agree on that.
But why is it more extreme?
Wait, but let's not act.
Well, the later the abortion is, the more dangerous it is for a start, and you have to weigh up the risk to the person getting the procedure. At that point, if you get to say, we'll say 8 months, because I used that example earlier, 8 months, that pregnancy is at the point now when abortion could have some very serious health consequences for the woman. So it becomes a conversation of, if it's not safe to abort, it's probably better we induce the pregnancy and get the child out of you as soon as possible. and then the baby can go for adoption if you don't want it at that point. And that's a shame, and that's something we'd obviously purposely want to avoid. And the way to avoid getting to that point is to make sure that that woman had the option of abortion previously, which these guys are against. So them using the whole all 9 months of the pregnancy argument is quite telling, because once again they're focused on these latter extremes. That really won't be much of a case if the abortion option was available earlier in the pregnancy. But they don't want that, because once again they want full control. They want, second the sperm meets the egg, from that point, no, we control your body now, you don't get any say in it. Just thinking there as well, could we imagine a nightmare situation where the woman, knowing that they're not allowed an abortion, knowing that this fetus is relying on them to maintain it, is there a point where that woman starves herself, puts herself through physical trauma, drinks, does drugs, everything she can to make sure this pregnancy she has is not viable, make sure that fetus doesn't survive, and as a result does harm to herself? And at that point, I know what the Conservatives would say. They'd make that illegal as well. Because what that does is it's very telling. It is them admitting that this fetus was a parasite the whole time, and it was relying on the woman allowing it to feed off the woman's life source. But at the same time, they're also admitting that's illegal because we wanted control of your body. You had to donate your life force to that fetus so we can make sure you stay in poverty, we continue to control you, and we take your choices away. That's what they actually want. They're never going to admit it outright.
Like, women are just deciding to get abortions at during their second or third trimester. And the women who are doing it, that's either
in 2019, women in their 20s accounted for the majority of abortions. The majority of abortions in 2019 took place early in gestation. 92.7% of abortions were performed at less than 13 weeks gestation. A small number of abortions, 6.2%, were performed at 14 to 20 weeks. And even fewer, less than 1%, were performed at over 21 weeks gestation. So, once again, Conservatives making a big issue out of something that never happens. It's like them trying to change the voter laws to prevent voter fraud that never happens. Once again, it's about control.
that they're going to die giving birth, or it's under some medical circumstances, because I doubt, even myself, I doubt that I would get to a 6-month, 7-month mark and then decide, oh, actually, I don't want to make this commitment. I feel like there's a lot of this conversation, like, when does it become wrong?
So the Conservative thing in America at the moment, by the way, is to make we'll let your abortion be legal, but only up to something silly like 8 weeks. And the reality is, a huge amount of pregnancies, unfortunately, you're not aware of it until after that point. So this is their stealth way of saying, oh, you can get an abortion as long as it's in this period, but we know full well that you probably won't know you're pregnant at that point. So basically, we want stealth pregnancies. It's, once again, it's bad faith, malicious, fucking evil policy creation from the Conservatives.
But like as if we're actually going to get an abortion at that time.
A lot of the, what pro-life people would consider hostile pro-choice comments and things like that are a response to hostile pro-life people. And I think that doesn't get talked about in our side because we don't like to fight each other. But I think it's an important point because I've seen absolutely disgraceful comments made towards women who are going into clinics, who are obviously in a very traumatizing situation, and you don't know what that woman is going through, and they're shouting obscenities at her. And that's appalling. And I think that we need to take responsibility as pro-life people to understand they've experienced so much hurt from our side of the community.
And I agree with that.
That's the first smart thing she said the whole debate.
But from our side of the aisle, folks are very passionate because they believe that's a life, they believe that's a baby, and they want to do everything they can to save that child. But I agree that our rhetoric needs.
Well, the problem there is education. They need to be educated so they can see why they're fucking wrong. Easy.
To be there as a resource and another option, and we can do that peacefully and respectfully as well.
I think on any side of any controversial issue, you're always going to have those extremists. Same thing on the pro-abortion side. People are always going to have feelings, and people are always going to fight on that level, right? But I think it's about coming up here and saying, like, what actually makes common sense? And how do we come up with policy that doesn't force folks to live by other people's values?
Well, that was interesting and infuriating in many ways. I will say the pro-abortion side absolutely won that, because the anti-abortion side came across as naive, nonsensical, and manipulative at the end of the day. And I've outlined why. One thing that wasn't really talked about, probably as a result of the Jubilee making the smart choice that was only one male per side, which is good, because men really shouldn't be getting involved in the actual policy side of it, in my opinion. I feel like I'm okay reviewing a debate on it, which is kind of what I intend to do here. So no one point out that I'm being a hypocrite by saying men aren't allowed to be involved when I'm a man. But at the same time, what I wanted to highlight is this whole idea of men getting involved in this debate, trying to control women's bodies, essentially. I always think it was interesting if the dynamic changed and it was the men who were being made to go through the same thing as the women. So the whole idea of the woman having the right to the abortion is because, and why the men don't get a say in that, is because the women are the ones being affected by that abortion. They're the one who has the life attached to them, in theory. They're the ones that have the fetus attached to them. They're the ones that have their life force absorbed by this parasite of a fetus. And they're the ones ultimately that get to decide then, do they want that to continue to happen, or do they not want that responsibility? Do they not want that to happen? The men don't have to go through that. Especially if you go to the next step and you say, if it's an accident, if it's an accidental pregnancy, if it's a product of rape or incest, or vice versa, even though those things weren't the intention, even though those are not what anyone wanted, and it's very unfortunate, we can all agree that, you are still trapped. You, the woman, are still trapped, and you have to make sure that thing inside you reaches the stage of life where it's born and comes out of your body. And then, potentially, you also need to look after it, because the state fucking sucks at looking after it. If we're saying women are trapped, despite the whole thing being an accident, what would men say if we turned around and said, right, let's introduce a law where men are trapped? So, we'd need everyone's DNA on record so we can find out who the father is. Make sure no one can escape just by running away. But if you're deemed that you are the father of that child, you're the biological father, you, like the mother, are bound to that child throughout the pregnancy. You have to provide financial support, as well as support emotionally and within the household, to make sure that mother is safe, that mother is provided for, and the baby eventually is provided for as well. We can extend it even further. If there's ever a woman, therefore, because once again, remember, we've already highlighted that once the woman's pregnant, she's stuck with that pregnancy. Therefore, it's only fair that once the woman's pregnant, the father of that child's also stuck with that pregnancy. We also then have to consider, if a woman says she's on contraception, has sex, with the distinct purpose of getting pregnant, so as basically forced a sperm donor and essentially to impregnate her, and that man had no say in it. He didn't know he was getting someone pregnant, so it was an accident, and he was tricked. We could even say he was raped, if you really want to go that far. Everything I just mentioned would still apply to him. He has no out. He can't say he was tricked. He can't say it was a mistake. He can't say he was raped, because that didn't affect the woman, did it? The woman didn't have that as an out, so the man doesn't. So a man would be forced to look after a child, provide for the mother of that child, even if he didn't have a say in it, even if he didn't want that child, even if he had no intention of getting that girl pregnant. Because that's the laws you guys want, you conservative Christians want, for the woman. So doesn't it just make sense that it applies to the men as well? Now, the response to that, and it would be a reasonable response, would be, that's psychotic. That I don't want that. That sounds horrible. Yeah, well done. That's what you're telling women to do every day when you say you are anti-abortion. So check yourself before you wreck yourself, as the old saying goes. That's the cringiest thing I've ever said on a stream, but there you go. So there's my 2 cents on abortion. What a light-hearted one for New Year's Eve, eh?